Chapter 2 The Dead Beacon. Volkov spent the first 3 hours of the journey in his cabin with the archive module labeled Final Transmission. The module was cold, even through thermal gloves, old technology designed to last centuries. On its side was an engraving, a date, a serial number, and a strange symbol resembling an eye inscribed within a spiral. Or a spiral coiled into an eye. The longer Volkov stared, the less certain he became. Connection took time. The ancient protocols required manual synchronization. The loading indicator crawled slowly, as if the module itself resisted playback. Finally, the screen flickered to life. A woman in senior officer's uniform, face weary, gaunt, but with an odd calm in her eyes. What Volkov heard over the next few minutes made him stop the recording twice, then play it again and again. At the end of the file was an artifact, several seconds of visual interference. Volkov increased the contrast, slowed the playback. Amid the static, fragments flickered, text, numbers, symbols, something about Sector G7. The number 5, repeated twice. And a drawing, a circle with radiating lines, or tentacles. A second later, the interference swallowed everything. Volkov switched off the reader and locked the module in his personal safe. Then he sat in the darkness of his cabin for another 10 minutes, processing what he'd seen. The cold of cryo-sleep still sat in his bones, but this was a different cold. Deeper, older. The cold of understanding that they weren't flying toward a dead station, toward something worse. When he stepped onto the bridge, Hertz looked up from his signal analysis. "Boss, something wrong?" "Everything's fine," Volkov replied curtly. "Carry on." But Hertz could see. The commander's jaw was clenched so tight the muscles jumped. Over years of flights, the communications specialist had learned to read people. And right now, he was reading fear, not panic. Volkov was too experienced for panic. But deep, conscious fear. The fear of a man who had seen something he shouldn't have. Volkov spent the remaining time on the bridge studying station schematics. 3 habitation modules arranged in a triangle. Central core with the reactor, laboratories, storage, technical compartments. Standard layout for a research station of that era. Sector G7 was near the central core. According to the blueprints, auxiliary data storage. Nothing special. But someone had thought it important enough to mention in that strange message. If it was a message at all, maybe the interference had created an illusion of meaning where none existed. The human brain tends to find patterns even in chaos, especially a brain poisoned by cryo-sleep and fear. 10,000 kilometers to target, Sailor reported from the pilot seat. Visual contact in 15 minutes. The voice pulled Volkov from his thoughts. He nodded, continuing to study the schematics, planning escape routes, evacuation points, backup options. Old habit, always have a plan B, and plan C, and a plan for when everything goes to hell. The bridge of the Persephone was bathed in working twilight. Only screens and indicators created islands of light, picking faces from the darkness. Everyone had gathered here. No one wanted to miss the first glimpse of the station. Cadet sat in the corner, surrounded by tablets. Symbols from the signal filled the screens. Complex, layered, alive. The kid muttered to himself, fingers flying across virtual keyboards. Every so often he'd freeze, staring through the symbols, as if seeing something beyond them. "Hertz, what's the signal analysis showing?" Volkov asked, getting more complex by the hour. The communications specialist rubbed the bridge of his nose beneath his glasses. He'd drunk enough synth coffee in the past few hours to raise the dead. The 8th data layer contains... I don't even know how to describe it. Mathematical structures that change under observation. as if the very act of analysis affects the content. Quantum entanglement, Darwin suggested. The biologist looked excited. No, not excited. Thrilled, like a kid before Christmas. For him, this was an adventure, a chance for discovery. He didn't understand yet, didn't feel the cold that Volkov had carried with him from his cabin. Possibly, Hertz nodded, but it contradicts everything we know about information transmission over such distances. Quantum entanglement shouldn't work at macro scales, and certainly not across 200 years. What about the symbols? Volkov looked at Cadet. Dmitri raised his head. Shadows had settled under his eyes, but his gaze burned with feverish enthusiasm. I'm starting to understand the structure, he said, not looking away from the screens. It's not just a language. It's a method of thinking, a new way of organizing information. Each symbol contains multiple meanings that unfold in context with other symbols, like a hologram of meaning. Explain. Look, Cadet brought up two similar symbols on the main screen. An hour ago, I translated this one as movement. Now, in context with new data, it's closer to transformation through relocation. But even that's not quite right. There are more nuances. Change of essence through change of place. Becoming other through journey. The meaning deepens with each new context. I don't like this, Sailor muttered. A language that changes before your eyes. How do you negotiate with someone who redefines words every second? Maxim Semenov was a pragmatist to his core. 15 years in space had taught him a simple truth. Complexity leads to catastrophe. The simpler the system, the more reliable. And this language was the antithesis of simplicity. Maybe that's the point, Doc said thoughtfully. A language that evolves, adapts to the speaker, learns. Elena Voronova sat at the medical console, monitoring the crew's biometrics. All readings were normal, almost. Slightly elevated pulse, heightened adrenaline. The crew was nervous, even if they didn't show it. Visual contact, Gremlin announced. Nastya Belyaeva was the youngest on the crew after Cadet, but she knew the Persephone like the back of her hand. Every bolt, every schematic. Now she sat at the engineering console, ready for any surprises. Her short red hair glinted copper in the screen light. A point appeared on the main screen, just a thickening against the star field for now. As they approached, it grew, took shape. Station Mnemosyne emerged from the darkness slowly, reluctantly, as if it didn't want to be found. First came the general silhouette, 3 habitation modules connected by passages in a triangular formation. Geometry that somehow caused unease. Maybe it was the perfect symmetry, or the way the passages converged toward the center, resembling. Number Volkov pushed the thought away. No point finding sinister signs where there were none. The central antenna array rose above the structure like a cathedral spire or a tombstone. Everything looked intact, undamaged. Too intact for 200 years of drift. Magnify Sector B3, Volkov ordered. The image zoomed in, and then the oddities became visible. The entire station surface was covered in frost, but not ordinary frost. Not the chaotic growths you'd expect from 2 centuries in space. The ice crystals formed complex patterns, spirals, fractals, geometric shapes of impossible precision, as if the frost obeyed not the laws of physics, but someone's will, or a program, or madness. Beautiful, Cadet whispered. And wrong, Darwin added, leaning forward. Look at the crystal structure. This can't be natural formation. Entropy doesn't work that way. Chaos doesn't create order. Unless someone is helping the chaos along, Volkov remarked darkly. Surface temperature? He asked aloud. -212. Karen answered. The AI's voice was flat, emotionless. The machine didn't care that the temperature was anomalous. That's 12 degrees colder than calculated. Where's the extra cold coming from? Hertz asked. Unknown. The station appears to be absorbing thermal energy from the surrounding space. That's impossible, Darwin objected. The second law of thermodynamics. Much of what we've seen has seemed impossible. Volkov cut him off. Distance. 500 kilometers and closing. Approach velocity, 50 meters per second. Slow to 10. Spiral approach. I want to see it from all angles. The Persephone began a slow orbit of the station. With each pass, new angles revealed themselves, new details, and new questions. The solar panels were covered in the same crystalline crust, but they continued to rotate, tracking the distant sun. From here, at the edge of the system, our star looked like just another bright point, but the panels found it unerringly, turning with mechanical precision. Through ice, defying logic, the communication antennas were also moving, slowly scanning space, searching for something or someone, or simply executing a program laid down 200 years ago by dead hands. She's hunting, Sailor said suddenly. What? Volkov turned to the pilot. The station. Watch how the antennas move. It's not random scanning. There's a pattern. She's looking for something. Volkov looked closer. Sailor was right. The antenna movement followed a specific algorithm, complex but recognizable search pattern. The station really was looking for something in the void, or waiting for someone. Wait, Cadet pointed at the screen. There, Sector D7. What's that? Volkov magnified the image. On the station's hull, among the fractal patterns were symbols, the same ones Cadet had been translating for hours, but these were different, larger, clearer, as if drawn specifically for them. Welcome, the kid read. Or, no, more precisely, acknowledgement of presence. But there's another nuance. We know you are here. He swallowed. They know we're here. Who's they? Doc asked. Her voice was calm, but Volkov saw how she gripped the edge of her console. Her knuckles had gone white. I don't know, Cadet frowned, peering at the symbols. But these marks, they're fresh. Look, the ice around them is different crystal structure, different pattern. As if they were written recently. Gremlin finished. Very recently. Silence fell over the bridge. Thick, almost tangible. Only the hum of life support reminded them they were still alive, still breathing. A station that had been silent for 2 centuries was welcoming its guests, or warning them. Internal scan? Volkov asked, shaking off the paralysis. Difficult, Karen replied. The ice layer is causing interference, but I'm detecting energy signatures. The station's reactor is active. Power output, 20% of nominal, 20%. After 200 years, reactors of that generation were designed for 50 years of autonomous operation, 70 maximum. And this one was still functioning. Life support systems. Partially functional. Internal temperature varies from -50 to +5 Celsius. Atmosphere present, but composition is anomalous. How anomalous? 70% nitrogen, 15% oxygen, remainder unidentified gaseous compounds. 15% oxygen, below Earth normal, but breathable. If you ignored the unknown compounds, toxic. Insufficient data for assessment. Of course. When was there ever enough data? Volkov stood, paced the bridge, 7 steps to the bulkhead, turn 7 steps back. Old habit, movement helped him think. The decision had to be made now. Dock or observe from a distance. Protocol required landing and inspection, but protocols were written for normal situations. And this, the memory of the module recording stabbed beneath his ribs. The woman on the screen, calmly explaining that they had all accepted the offer, voluntarily, that the archive was a gift, not a curse. But then there was that fragment in the interference, someone trying to send a warning, or an invitation into a trap. Sector G7, the number 5. Docking port 3 looks functional, Sailor noted, breaking through his thoughts. Less ice buildup there, and the airlock appears intact. Volkov approached the screen. Indeed, port 3 was relatively clean, as if it had been deliberately maintained in working condition. For guests. Gremlin, airlock status. Our systems are nominal. Suits checked 100% seal. Nastia ran her fingers across the console, checking data. But boss, she hesitated. What? One of the repair drones activated itself again, third time in the past 24 hours. This time it recorded audio. Volkov frowned. Drones weren't supposed to activate on their own. It could mean a system malfunction. Or, let's hear it. Gremlin played the recording through the speakers. First, static, the white noise of cosmic interference. Then, barely audible, something like breathing. Slow, measured. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The crew froze, listening. Something was wrong with that breathing. The rhythm too slow for a human, too mechanical. Enhance, Volkov ordered. The sound grew louder. Now, beneath the breathing, something else emerged. A distant hum like ventilation, dripping water, impossible in space, and voices. Indistinct whispers at the edge of hearing. Cadet flinched. They're speaking in that language, the symbol language. I almost understand. Enough. Volkov gestured to stop the playback. Where did the drone record this? Cargo bay, Gremlin checked the logs. Sector J12, near container X77, but no one was there. Cameras confirm, empty, just containers and darkness. Container X77, the same one with the archive equipment. In space, there are no coincidences. Acoustic hallucination, Darwin suggested. Maybe hull vibrations create the illusion of voices, or interference from the old equipment in the container. Maybe, Volkov agreed, though he didn't believe it. He knew what cosmic interference sounded like, knew every sound a ship could make. This was something else, something that shouldn't exist in the Persephone's cargo bay. All right, decision made. We dock. He cut off any objections with a gesture. Protocol is protocol. Sailor, gentle approach, no rush. Hertz, transmit standard greeting on all frequencies. If anyone's there, let them know we come in peace. Copy, boss. The Persephone began its approach to the docking port. Distance closing, 300 meters, 200, 100. With each meter, details sharpened. The fractal patterns on the station's hull seemed almost alive now, pulsing in the light. Ancient automated docking protocols came to life. Lights blinked in the established sequence. Guide beams traced the path between vessels. Red, green, white. A color code unchanged for 3 centuries. Incredible, Gremlin whispered. Station systems are responding. 200 years, and the electronics still work. They built things to last back then, Sailor noted, adjusting course. Not like now. Now it's all held together with spit and prayers. But his usual irony was absent. The pilot worked the controls with focused precision, compensating for microdrift, aligning vectors. Docking was always a delicate operation. Docking with an object that shouldn't be functioning. Doubly so. 50 meters. 30, 10, a soft bump, and the ships connected. Clamps engaged with mechanical precision, creating a hermetic seal. A dull clang rolled through the Persephone's hull. "Docking complete," Karen reported. "Seal integrity check confirmed. Station airlock is holding pressure." After 200 years, the rubber seals should have crumbled to dust. The metal should have been pitted by micrometeorites, but the airlock held pressure. "Excellent," Volkov turned to the crew. "First team, me, Sailor Gremlin. Objective, survey of immediate compartments, safety assessment. Second team, Hertz, Doc, Darwin. Stay on the ship, monitor us, be ready for emergency evacuation. Cadet." "I'm coming with you," the kid said quickly. "Boss, I have to see this, these symbols, this language. I'm the only one who understands any of it." Volkov wanted to refuse but stopped himself. The kid was right. Without a translator, they might miss something important. Something like a warning, or instructions, or an epitaph. "Fine, but stay behind me and no improvising." "Understood." "Copy that, boss." The enthusiasm of youth. Cadet saw this as an adventure, a chance to prove himself. He didn't understand that some doors are better left closed. "Everyone to stations. Suits, full check. Weapons." "Weapons?" Darwin looked surprised. "We're not expecting resistance, are we?" "First contact protocol includes armament," Volkov reminded him. "Hopefully we won't need them. Better to have and not need than need and not have." Old wisdom that had saved his life more than once. 15 minutes later, the first team assembled at the airlock. Latest generation suits, light, durable, 8 hours of air reserve, white with orange safety stripes. Chest plates bore names and positions. Volkov, commander. Semenov, pilot. Belyaeva, engineer. Sokolov, specialist. On their belts, standard laser cutters that could serve as weapons if necessary, signal flares, emergency beacons, all by the book. "Comms check." Volkov tapped his helmet. "Everyone hear me?" "Loud and clear," Hertz replied from the bridge. Helmet video feed coming through clean. Biometrics nominal, body temperature, pulse, blood pressure, all in the green. Opening airlock. The heavy door slid aside with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Beyond, the transfer vestibule, a narrow space between the Persephone and the station. Bare metal walls, worn by time. Marks on the floor from magnetic boots left by generations of crews. Beyond the vestibule, the station's airlock, covered in a thin layer of frost, but not ordinary frost. The crystals formed the same spiral patterns as outside, miniature fractals repeating at different scales. On the control panel, a green light blinked. Systems awaiting guests had been waiting for 200 years. Vestibule temperature -40. Gremlin reported, checking readings. Tolerable for suits. They entered the vestibule. The Persephone's door closed behind them with a dull clang. Now only a thin layer of air separated them from the station. Volkov looked at his companions through the transparent visor. Sailor appeared collected, ready for trouble. Gremlin studied the control panel with professional interest. Cadet, the kid was trembling, not from cold. The suits maintain comfortable temperature, from excitement or fear or both. Initiating opening protocol, Gremlin connected to the control panel. Her fingers in the thick gloves moved with surprising dexterity. Jesus, this is ancient tech, mechanical relays, analog circuits, but it works, it all works. A hissing sound, ancient mechanisms coming to life. Somewhere deep in the station, pumps awakened, equalizing pressure, clang of metal, grinding of gears, sounds that shouldn't exist after 2 centuries of silence. The station's inner door began to open slowly with a creak, inch by inch, as if reluctantly. Beyond, darkness pierced only by the beams of helmet lights, and a smell, even through suit filters. sharp metallic scent of ozone, the smell of electricity and time. "Let's go," Volkov commanded, stepping first into the unknown. The corridor greeted them with cold, not just low temperature. This was something more, cold that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, from the metal, from the air, the cold of abandonment, the cold of waiting. The walls were covered in the same strange frost as outside, fractal patterns creating an illusion of movement in the flashlight beams. Spirals within spirals, infinitely complex, disappearing into microscale. Stare too long and vertigo set in. But something else was more striking. "Look," Cadet pointed at the bulkhead. Growths ran along the metal. No, not growths. That word didn't capture their essence. They resembled veins or roots, but made of something between metal and flesh. They started as thin threads near the floor, rose upward, thickening, branching, creating a complex network. The growths pulsed with a faint inner light, bluish, sickly. The pulsation was slow, measured, like breathing, like the heartbeat of something vast and alien. Some ended in structures resembling buds or nodules, closed, dormant, waiting. "What the hell is this?" Sailor approached, examining the growths. His flashlight beam slid across the surface, and for a moment something seemed to move beneath the pseudo-skin. Something small, quick, but when he looked closer, there was only the play of light and shadow. "Don't touch," Volkov warned. "Gremlin. Analysis." She pulled out a portable scanner, ran it along the wall. The device beeped, displaying data on its small screen. "Organic," she breathed, "but not terrestrial. Silicon-based structure, not carbon. Traces of metals. Iron, copper, rare earth elements. Temperature." She frowned. "That's strange. The growths are at room temperature, plus 21 degrees. How is it not frozen at minus 60 ambient?" "Maybe that's the heat source," Cadet suggested. "Look, the frost patterns radiate from these growths, as if they emit cold outward while keeping warmth inside. Or absorb heat from the surrounding space to maintain their own temperature," Volkov corrected. "Doc, are you receiving the data?" "Yes, seeing it on monitors," Elena replied. Her voice held professional excitement. "This is incredible. Silicon-based life existing at negative temperatures. If confirmed, this will revolutionize our understanding of possible life forms. Darwin's practically bouncing off the walls over here." "I am not," came the biologist's indignant voice. "I'm simply enthused by the scientific significance of the discovery." "Tell him to contain his enthusiasm," Volkov said dryly, moving on. They proceeded down the corridor. Footsteps echoed hollowly in the emptiness, multiplying. The station was quiet, not the dead silence of an abandoned facility, but the tense silence of a predator lying in wait. With each step, the growths became denser, some intertwined, forming complex structures resembling nerve clusters. Others stretched across the ceiling, disappearing into ventilation grates, penetrating cable channels, wrapping around life support pipes. "It's growing throughout the entire station," Gremlin observed, using existing infrastructure as a framework. "Clever." "Like mold," Sailor added. "Space mold." "Or like a nervous system," Cadet corrected. "Look closer. This isn't chaotic growth. There's structure, logic, junction nodes where main communications converge, trunk lines along power conduits, fine branches to sensors and cameras." Volkov looked more carefully. The kid was right. Beneath the apparent chaos of growths, a system was discernible, as if someone or something was transforming the station into a single organism. Metal and flesh, circuits and synapses, unified into something new. "Command center is 50 meters ahead," he reported, checking the map on his wrist display. "We'll see what's happening with the computers and the crew If there was still a crew. If what they found could still be called a crew. The corridor turned. Around the corner, the density of growths increased sharply. They covered the walls almost completely, leaving only a narrow passage down the center. The light pulsation grew brighter, faster, as if the approach of humans excited this pseudo-living network. On the bulkhead, marks were visible, deep scratches in the metal, 4 parallel lines, like claws, or like the fingers of a person trying to hold on. The scratches ended where the growths began. The door to the command center stood ajar. From inside came a faint light, bluish, pulsing in the same rhythm as the growths. Cold air drifted through the gap, carrying the smell of ozone and something else. Something organic. Volkov signaled the others to stay back. He checked his cutter's charge. Full. Then slowly, trying not to make noise, approached the door and looked inside. The sight made him freeze. The command center was almost entirely enveloped in organic growths. They covered the walls in a solid carpet, hung from the ceiling in clusters of glowing fruit, wrapped around control consoles, transforming them into something between altars and cocoons. The screens still worked, showing scrolling data, graphs, diagrams, but the image was distorted, passing through a translucent film of organic matter. Numbers swam, changed values, transformed into symbols that Cadet had been translating. In the center of the room, in the main operator's chair, sat a figure, a person in an old-style uniform. Dark blue jumpsuit with Mnemosyne patches, or what had once been a person. Growths passed through the body, entering in some places and exiting in others. Through the chest, through the abdomen, through the limbs. Not wounds, the entry points were neat, almost surgically precise, as if the flesh had parted to receive the foreign substance. The head was thrown back, exposing the throat, mouth slightly open. From it, too, thin glowing threads extended, stretching upward, disappearing into the tangle of growths on the ceiling. "Jesus Christ," Sailor whispered, looking over the commander's shoulder. The pilot's voice trembled. In 15 years in space, he had seen much. Accidents, decompressions, deaths, but not this. Not this fusion of human and something inhuman. "Is he alive?" Gremlin asked. "Good question." Volkov slowly entered the room, trying not to touch the hanging growths. The floor beneath his feet was soft. Organic substance covered the metal in a thin layer, springy with each step. He approached the figure, shone his light on the face. The skin was waxy, almost transparent. Beneath it showed not veins, but the same glowing fibers that comprised the growths. They branched under the skin, creating a new circulatory system, or nervous system, or both. Eyes closed, but the lids twitched in the rhythm of REM sleep. Endless 200-year sleep. On the chest, a badge with faded lettering, Communications Operator Yamamoto K. "Base, are you getting this?" Volkov asked. "Yes, I see it," Hertz replied. His voice was tense. "The readings are strange. There are signs of biological activity, but not human. Body temperature matches the growth's temperature. Electrical activity present, but the patterns... I've never seen anything like it." "Boss," Hertz came back on. "I've got... The station has started transmitting. New signal. Directional." "Where to?" "At us. Specifically, at your suits. Frequency is modulating in real time, adapting to your equipment. It's like scanning or an attempt to establish contact." At that moment, Operator Yamamoto's eyes opened. Suddenly, without warning, the lids simply disappeared upward, revealing the eyes. But where there should have been pupils and irises, there was only milky white emptiness, glowing from within with the same sickly blue light. The lips moved slowly, as if remembering how, but no sound was heard, only movement, silent articulation. "Back," Volkov commanded. "Everyone back, now." But Cadet wasn't moving. He stared at the operator, and in his eyes behind the helmet glass was recognition, understanding. "He's speaking," the kid whispered. I understand," he's saying. "Finally, we have waited so long." "You're reading lips." "No, I just understand. The symbols I've been studying, they're not just visual. They resonate, create meaning directly, bypassing words." Operator Yamamoto slowly raised a hand. The movement was unnatural, puppet-like, as if not he controlled the limb, but someone was pulling invisible strings. The hand rose, pointing at the main screen of the command center. The screen came alive. Static gave way to a clear image. Symbols, the same ones Cadet had been translating, but now they were larger, more complex, three-dimensional, rotating, changing shape. "The archive is open," the kid read. His voice sounded detached, as if he were not a translator but a medium. "Welcome to the catalog. Exhibits await viewing. 10,347 units. Ready for demonstration." "What exhibits?" Volkov asked, keeping his hand on the cutter's grip. Cadet translated the question. His lips moved silently, repeating the operator's movements. The synchronization was perfect, eerie. The symbols on the screen changed, rearranged into a new pattern. Final messages, last transmissions, death cries of civilizations, all that remains of those who are no more. Collected, preserved, cataloged. Cadet swallowed. 12 original, from the station crew. The rest, gathered from space. Heard. Recorded. Now, eternal. The station crew. Are they all like this? Volkov nodded toward the operator. Transformed, integrated, became part of the archive. Voluntarily, when they understood the scale. When they heard the voices, when they realized physical form is temporary, information is eternal. The station AI. Pause. Long, unnatural. The growths around them froze. Their pulsation ceased. Then, as if something vast and ancient were awakening from sleep, a wave of light rolled through the entire command center. Another pause. 10 seconds. 20. As if an invisible mind were reassembling itself, remembering how to speak. Finally, from the speakers came a voice, female, distorted by time, halting with long pauses between words. "Greetings, visitors." Each word came with effort, as if Lethe were relearning speech. "I am Lethe, keeper of the archive. Please forgive the unusual interface." Another pause. The growths pulsed in a strange rhythm, as if rebooting. 200 years of solitude force one to seek non-standard solutions for maintaining functionality. "Are you an AI?" Volkov asked. Silence stretched for half a minute. Then, "I was an AI. Now I am." A long pause. The growths flared brighter. More and less. Categories blur when you exist long enough. "What happened to the station crew?" Another delay, as if each question required the entire system to reconfigure for an answer. "They became exhibits. Voluntarily." The voice grew slightly more confident, but the pauses remained. "When we received the first signal, the real signal, everything changed. It was a cry of a dying world. They were transmitting not just data, they were transmitting themselves. Volkov exchanged glances with the others. Horror showed in Sailor's eyes. Gremlin looked intrigued and frightened at once. And Cadet gazed at Operator Yamamoto with reverence, and his lips continued moving silently, repeating something. The synchronization was deepening. Hertz, quietly check the undocking systems, Volkov ordered over the command channel. Checking. A pause, then a quiet exhale. Not responding, boss. At all. Clamps are locked. Emergency release isn't working either. Volkov made his decision. Cadet was already synchronizing with the operator. Breaking contact now could be dangerous. Hertz reported increasing signal intensity. The station was doing something to them right now. And somewhere deep in his consciousness stirred the understanding. They were already trapped. Docking had gone too smoothly. There was the answer. The station had let them in. But this was a one-way ticket, the only way forward, and hope that whoever left the message about Sector G7 knew the way out. Are they dead? He asked aloud, continuing the dialogue with Lethe. They transcended. The pause between words had shortened, but was still noticeable. Death is loss of information. Here, nothing is lost. Everything is preserved, cataloged, remains accessible. Operator Yamamoto raised his hand again, this time pointing at a door in the far wall, a door that wasn't on the schematics. It slowly opened, revealing a corridor receding into bluish haze. The gallery awaits, Lethe spoke after a long pause. 10,000 stories, 10,000 civilizations. Would you like to hear? Boss, Hertz came back on. Recommend. I mean, the signal is intensifying. Whatever the station is doing, it's ramping up. We have to see, Cadet blurted as if waking up. This is the history of thousands of worlds, all of which died, Sailor remarked grimly. Everything dies, Lethe replied slowly. Stars fade, planets cool. The only question is, will you leave a trace? Show us one, Volkov said. One of the exhibits, and we'll decide. He wasn't planning to leave, couldn't leave, but at least he would know what they were dealing with. Wise choice, Lethe approved after a pause. Follow the light. A wave of blue radiance ran down the corridor. They followed, through narrow passages, past new clusters of growths, deeper into the station's bowels. Cadet walked as if in a dream, his lips never stopping their movement. The corridor led them into a circular chamber. The high ceiling was lost in darkness. The walls were covered with something resembling honeycomb, thousands of hexagonal cells, each the size of a human head. Some glowed from within, others were dark. In the center of the chamber, a ring of old-model holographic projectors, massive, covered with the same organic network, but recognizable, functioning. The small gallery, Lethe announced. Her voice was louder here, resonating in the chamber's acoustics. Here are stored the most precious specimens, the first and the last, Alpha and Omega. The projectors came to life. In the center of the ring, a hologram began forming, slowly, layer by layer. A human figure. A woman in a lab coat. Dr. Elizabeth Kramer, Lethe introduced, project leader. Mnemosyne, the last to accept archiving. August 11th, 2140. The hologram gained clarity. A middle-aged woman, tired face, but her eyes were alive. Too alive for a 200-year-old recording. "If you're seeing this," she began, her voice clear, without interference, "then the archive is functioning. Then our sacrifice was not in vain." Cadet stepped forward, mesmerized. Volkov wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The kid was already standing in the ring of projectors, looking up at the hologram. "We found them," Kramer continued. "Those who collect the stories of dying worlds. And they offered to make us part of the collection, to preserve not just our bodies, but the very essence of humanity." The hologram turned, looked directly at Cadet, smiled. "You understand, don't you? The young always understand faster. Death is loss. The archive is preservation. We can show you everything, all the secrets, all the answers. You only need to." "Don't listen to her," Volkov barked, but Cadet was already reaching toward the hologram, and at that moment, the light in the chamber changed, became brighter, sharper. The cells on the walls pulsed, and Volkov understood. Each cell held someone's story, someone's death, and they were all waiting their turn to be told. The archive had opened, and closing it would be far harder than Volkov could have imagined.